911?
This is 911.
On Pioneer Boulevard, the wash zone. My daughter was just kidnapped. Top of the hill was a gray Ford. A man and a woman in the car.
Crimes such as murder and abduction are oftentimes cloaked in mystery. But few stories have thrown a deeper shadow than the terrifying narrative of the longest kidnapping in the United States.
My first taste of pure evil.
You knew it was pure evil?
Yeah.
This tragic story will captivate you from beginning to end, weaving a record of terror, courage, and triumph.
Hidden from view behind this fence is a secret maze, the silver-colored car used in the kidnapping back in 1991.
As we peel back the layers of this horrific story, prepare to be drawn into a world where heroes emerge from the shadows. Background: J.C. Dugard's family and personal history depict a complicated record of ties and events that contributed significantly to her kidnapping and subsequent trauma. Ken Slayton, her biological father, remained away from her life, absent not only from her childhood, but also from the investigation that followed her kidnapping. This lack of paternal engagement highlights a gap in her support network, exposing her to the horrors that awaited her. JC was raised mostly by her mother, Terry, and stepfather, Carl Probin. She found peace and familial connection with her mother and half-sister, Shayna. However, her bond with Probin never developed into closeness, creating a notable emotional void in her family dynamic. Despite efforts to provide a sense of security by relocating from Arcadia to the rural peacefulness of Myers, California, the move proved unable to protect JC from the impending disaster. Philip Greg Garrido, the major perpetrator, came from a turbulent upbringing. Garrido was born in Pittsburgh, California, and his early years in Brentwood provided no indication of the darkness that would envelop his life. He graduated from Liberty High School in 1969 and was first classified as a good boy by his father, Manuel. However, a critical motorbike accident during his adolescence triggered a fundamental transition, sending him down a road marked by substance abuse and crime. Abduction. On a typical morning in 1991, J.C. Dugard's mother departed for work, leaving J.C., who was only 11, to catch her school bus. J.C. walked up the hill, dressed in her favorite pink outfit. Suddenly, a gray automobile pulled alongside her. She assumed the driver needed directions. However, things quickly became dark. The driver, Philip Garrido, used a stun pistol on J.C., knocking her unconscious. His wife, Nancy, then assisted in dragging J.C. into the car, removing her clothes save for a butterfly-shaped ring she kept hidden from them. J.C., wrapped in a blanket, drifted in and out of consciousness on the 3-hour trip to the Garridos' house in Antioch. J.C. implored them, saying her family could not pay the ransom. Nancy is reported to have spotted J.C. and agreed to kidnap her for Philip. Meanwhile, Carl Probin, J.C.'s stepfather, watched everything from their home. He noticed a gray automobile turn around at the bus station where J.C. was. A woman forced J.C. into the car. Probin rushed after them on his bike, but he couldn't catch them. People considered Probin and J.C. biological father, Ken Slayton, as suspects despite the fact that they did not know one another. Probin underwent numerous lie detector tests and passed them all. Slayton, who was unaware he had a child with J.C.'s mother, was soon absolved of all suspicion. The kidnapping devastated J.C.'s family. It eventually ended Terry and Probin's marriage, demonstrating the long-term pain caused by J.C.'s absence. Search effort. Following J.C. Dugard's abrupt disappearance, both the local community and the rest of the country reacted quickly and decisively. Within hours, the story drew the attention of local and national media outlets, shedding light on the impending tragedy. The close-knit community of South Lake Tahoe banded together, pooling every possible resource in an effort to find the missing girl. Dozens of dedicated volunteers descended on the streets, joining forces in a thorough search that left no stone untouched. From the start, it was evident that this was a group united by a single goal: to bring J.C. home. As the days turned into weeks, the search effort became more intense, aided by an outpouring of solidarity that crossed geographical lines. Tens of thousands of leaflets and posters with J.C.'s image and details about her disappearance were distributed to businesses across the United States. The once quiet village of South Lake Tahoe turned into a sea of pink, with ribbons adorning the landscape as devastating reminders of JC's absence and symbols of solidarity with her bereaved family. Pink, chosen because it was JC's favorite color, came to symbolize hope and fortitude in the face of adversity. Terry Probin stood out as a symbol of courage and commitment in the midst of widespread despair. Inspired by the community's unrelenting devotion, she founded JC's Hope, a grassroots group that rallied volunteers and raised funds. The community came together to fund the continued search and raise awareness by selling cassette tapes, including the song JC Lee, as well as a variety of goods such as t-shirts, hoodies, and buttons. Working with prominent organizations such as Child Quest International and the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children, the combined determination to find JC remained unwavering. JC's case received national attention in a story on the June 14, 1991 broadcast of Fox's America's Most Wanted. Even as the years passed and time threatened to dampen the passion of the first search, JC's dedication to his cause remained unwavering. Captivity. JC Dugard, her head veiled in a blanket, was carried behind the Garrido's house to a cluster of dilapidated tents and outbuildings. The captor, Philip Garrido, confined her into a small shed that was soundproofed and welded tight. Her naked body was confined with handcuffs, and Garrido warned her of lethal Doberman pinschers outside, waiting to pounce if she attempted to flee. The first few seconds of her detention set a chilling precedent. Garrido put Dugard in a shower right after the abduction, which was her first encounter with an unclothed man. In the days that followed, she remained bound, with Garrido serving as her only human contact, occasionally delivering fast food and chat. She could only relieve herself with a bucket. Within a week, Garrido began his heinous violation of her dignity, which he repeated at least weekly for the first 3 years. After a month and a half in captivity, Dugard was relocated to a larger room, shackled to a bed, where Garrido's delusions took hold. He duped her by claiming she was his chosen helper by demon angels and compelled her into practices and other degrading activities. Garrido's odd behavior included listening for voices he thought came from the walls, affirming his divine servitude, and alternating between sorrow and threats to sell her into captivity. 7 months in, Dugard met Philip's wife, Nancy, who alternated between nurturing and hostile gestures, creating a cycle of manipulation and emotional abuse. Patrick McQuaid, the Garrido's neighbor, described a brief contact with Dugard shortly after her kidnapping, giving a disturbing look into her incarceration. Garrido's efforts to isolate Dugard included erecting a huge fence around the yard and confining her to a tent, effectively keeping her captive. The manipulation intensified with the display of kittens, which were quickly removed when Dugard dared to write her real name in a journal. Her identity was gradually destroyed, indicating the severity of her captivity and the degree of her captor's power. Medical neglect exacerbated her agony by denying her access to health care. After nearly 3 years in captivity, the Garridos gave Dugard some freedom from her restraints while still keeping her in the sealed room. On Easter Sunday, 1994, they served her cooked food for the first time and informed her that they believed she was pregnant, something Dugard had learned from television. She prepared for the delivery by viewing childbirth programs before giving birth to her first daughter on 18th August, 1994. Dugard, then 17, gave birth to her second daughter on November 13, 1997. Despite the constant torture and Garrido's antagonistic demeanor, Dugard concentrated on caring for her girls, relying on knowledge gathered from television. Dugard maintained a sense of normalcy by planting flowers in her garden and homeschooling her daughters. Garrido told her to address Nancy as their mother and show herself as their older sister to please his wife. This deception continued when they engaged with others. Dugard worked as a graphic artist in Garrido's print shop and impressed clients with her abilities. Despite having access to a business phone and email, she never revealed her true name or the details of her abduction. Witnesses reported seeing Dugard in the Garrido home on occasion, but she never expressed concern or sought to flee. While the family kept to themselves, Dugard's daughters were occasionally seen playing in the secondary backyard, which was most likely close to Dugard's living quarters. Throughout her confinement, Dugard faced the problems of parenthood while protecting her girls from their captors' fury, attempting to maintain a sense of normalcy inside their constrained environment. Missed rescue opportunities. Law enforcement officers repeatedly visited the Garridos' residence, yet crucial opportunities to rescue J.C. Dugard and her children were missed, drawing widespread criticism of their handling of the case. Despite the fact that Dugard had been kidnapped from an area near South Lake Tahoe, the same location as one of Philip Garrido's previous abductions, authorities remained oblivious to this connection. In April 1992, a potential sighting of Dugard at a gas station was reported, but police failed to act decisively. Similarly, in June 2002, emergency responders were called to the Garridos' home due to an injury, but this incident was not communicated to parole officers, further perpetuating the lack of oversight. In 2006, a concerned neighbor alerted authorities to suspicious activity at the Garridos' residence, including the presence of tents and Garridos' concerning behavior. However, despite this warning, law enforcement's response fell short, with a deputy sheriff merely issuing a verbal warning about potential code violations. These missed opportunities culminated in Dugard's continued captivity. The subsequent investigation revealed systemic failures within the California Department of Corrections and Rehabilitation, highlighting the urgent need for reform and improved procedures to prevent similar tragedies in the future. Reappearance. Philip Garrido made 2 significant visits on August 24, 2009, revealing a peculiar sequence of events that eventually led to J.C. Dugard and her children's rescue. First, he went to the FBI's San Francisco office and left behind a 4-page article explaining his alleged discovery of a cure for deviant conduct. This strange gesture suggested a delusional attitude, combined with a troubling feeling of self-righteousness. Garrido traveled to the University of California, Berkeley, alongside Dugard's 2 kids. There, he requested authorization for an event relating to his God's Desire program. Lisa Campbell, a university representative, observed Garrido's unusual conduct and the girl's calm demeanor. Sensing something was wrong, she arranged an appointment for the next day and ran a background check, which revealed Garrido's status as a registered sex offender on federal parole for kidnapping and assault. Officer Allie Jacobs became concerned the next day when Garrido returned with the girls for the appointment due to their pale skin and strange conduct. Recognizing Garrido's repeated parole infractions, she immediately called the parole office and left a lengthy report on voicemail. In response to Jacobs's worries, 2 parole officers went to the Garridos' home, where they only discovered Nancy, Garrido's wife, and his elderly mother. Despite Garrido's parole infractions, which included socializing and exceeding travel limits, they only took him into custody and sent him home with orders to report to the office the next day. 2 days later, on August 26, Garrido came to the parole office with Nancy, the daughters, and Dugard, who used the alias Alyssa. When questioned individually, Dugard maintained her false identity, portraying Garrido as a changed guy and herself as a battered wife from Minnesota. However, her guarded demeanor sparked suspicions, forcing the parole officer to call Concord police. When they arrived, Garrido confessed to Dugard's kidnapping, compelling her to reveal her true identity. Dugard experienced a sense of liberty as her 18-year confinement came to an end. Garrido and his wife were arrested, and on August 27, 2009, Dugard was reunited with her mother, Terry Probin, freeing her from her shackles. Reunion. After J.C. Dugard was freed, relatives and acquaintances sent updates on her children's well-being. Tina Dugard, J.C.'s aunt, and Shavon Molino, a former business associate, attested to the girls' good health and behavior. Tina noted that they consistently behaved like regular youngsters, whilst Molino observed their robotic demeanor and strange dress during her interactions with them. In the days following their reconnection, Dugard's stepfather reassured them about their health and intelligence, emphasizing the gradual nature of their reintegration. Due to the emotional attachment Dugard had formed with Garrido, she and her girls expressed sadness when they learned of their father's incarceration. Tina Dugard complimented the girls on their intelligence, articulateness, and interest, Ernie Allen, president of the National Center for Lost and Exploited Children, emphasized the importance of Dugard's return to the families of other long-term lost children, emphasizing the enduring hope it provides. Elizabeth Smart and Sean Hornbeck, both kidnapping survivors, expressed hope and resilience, highlighting the necessity of staying optimistic and getting therapy to deal with the consequences. 3 weeks after the rescue, Dugard wanted the pets she nurtured in captivity, demonstrating a desire for familiarity and comfort. People magazine published the first verifiable photo of J.C. Dugard as an adult on its cover, providing insight into her life after being released from captivity. Her memoir, A Stolen Life, a Memoir, which was published in 2011, got great reviews and provided readers with insight into her traumatic ordeal and recovery. Dugard began animal-assisted therapy with horses, a healing activity she shared with her mother and sister, which marked a positive step toward healing and regaining a feeling of normalcy in her life. Legal proceedings. Following Philip Garrido's arrest, officials conducted comprehensive searches of his home and neighbors' homes, as well as the homes and businesses of his printing clients. Despite police inquiries in Hayward and Dublin, California, no proof of missing girls from those regions was located. Notably, Garrido remained a person of interest in Michaela Gorecht's abduction case, as confirmed by Hayward police in July 2011, owing to Hayward's proximity to the Garrido's Antioch residence. On August 28, 2009, Philip and Nancy Garrido pled not guilty to charges of kidnapping and false imprisonment. District Attorney Vern R. Pearson and Assistant District Attorney James A. Clinchard handled the case in El Dorado County. At later hearings, Nancy's bail was set at $30 million, while Philip was placed on no-bail parole. The court also granted Philip's request for a confidential psychological or psychiatric evaluation. Nancy's defense attorney was withdrawn from the case in November 2009 due to sensitive evidence, which resulted in legal maneuvering and appeal. Nancy's new defense attorney was appointed in January 2010, and her bail was decreased to $20 million. Nancy and Philip gave a full confession to their crimes in February 2011, generating negotiations about a possible plea deal to avoid trial. On April 7, 2011, they suddenly pleaded not guilty to the allegations in an amended grand jury indictment. Philip's counsel highlighted worries about the grand jury selection and process, but Nancy's attorney expressed dissatisfaction with the unexpected outcome. Finally, on April 28, 2011, the Garridos pled guilty to kidnapping and assault by force. Philip was sentenced to 431 years to life in prison, while Nancy received a 36-year term with the chance of parole on August 2029. Dugard did not attend the sentence, but she submitted a written statement to her mother, reflecting on the anguish she had experienced and seeking closure via the legal process. Lawsuit against the United States. J.C. Dugard sued the United States on September 22, 2011, in the United States District Court for the Northern District of California. She charged the federal authorities with carelessness in monitoring Philip Garrido during his federal parole. Dugard claimed that parole officials should have revoked Garrido's parole and returned him to prison for a variety of infractions, including substance use, prior to her kidnapping. However, the United States Court of Appeals for the Ninth Circuit dismissed Dugard's civil claims under the Federal Tort Claims Act. In a 2-by-1 ruling penned by Judge John B. Owens, the court upheld the federal government's sovereign immunity. The court ruled that under state law, the United States could only be held accountable in the same way and to the same extent as a private individual under similar circumstances. Dugard's claim failed because the United States would not be responsible under California law. The majority reasoned that since Garrido was under federal parole monitoring, Dugard had not yet become his victim. Therefore, federal authorities had no duty to protect her or the public from him. Chief District Court Judge William Smith dissented, claiming that the majority had misread California law. He disagreed with the majority's conclusion, believing that there were solid grounds to hold the government accountable. Parole officer breaks his silence. In November 2022, Edward Santos, Philip Garrido's former parole officer, spoke with KCRA-TV in Sacramento, breaking his silence after retiring in December 2021. Santos expressed displeasure, claiming that he was barred from discussing the events surrounding Garrido's arrest and Dugard's rescue. He admitted that he felt confined by authorities, adding, "I wish the state of California had allowed me to speak. I was ordered not to speak with anyone at all. Just be quiet. Do not say anything and maybe you will keep your job. That is how I have always felt." Santos revealed that he had performed a thorough check of the Garridos' home and backyard, but found no indication of Dugard. However, his actions on the day of Philip's arrest were critical in Dugard's rescue. After learning of 2 young ladies spotted with Garrido on the UC Berkeley campus, Santos went to the Garrido home and asked to know their locations. When Philip claimed to have been picked up by their father, Santos requested that Garrido bring them to his office the next morning with their parents. When they arrived with Nancy and told contradictory explanations about the girls' identities, Santos relentlessly questioned them and Dugard. He highlighted that if he had not made these efforts, Dugard's genuine identity may never have been discovered. While Santos claimed to have completed his duty, he expressed sorrow for not discovering Dugard during his first visit to the Garrido residence. He also publicly apologized to Dugard for not communicating with her after their initial interview. Santos's revelations shed light on the difficulties that law enforcement officers encounter in similar situations. Despite his attempts, bureaucratic constraints prevented him from fully disclosing his role in the events that led to Dugard's rescue. However, his determination and persistence in investigating Garrido and his associates eventually proved critical in bringing Dugard's misery to an end. Her life now. J.C. Dugard's life is a monument to perseverance and bravery. Despite terrible pain, she has developed a path to healing and strength. Dugard's commitment to assisting others is obvious in the J.C. Foundation, which she established in 2010 to assist families dealing with extreme trauma, relying on her own horrific experiences. Dugard's 2016 book, Freedom, My Book of Firsts, provides a glimpse into her life as a free woman. The book details her daily achievements and tribulations, as well as the difficulty of maintaining privacy in the face of constant media scrutiny. Despite her ongoing concerns about being identified in public, Dugard remains resolute in her quest to live a good life with her girls, savoring the freedom they have finally achieved. Throughout her trip, Dugard demonstrates unshakable courage. Despite overcoming enormous obstacles and managing the complexity of life in the spotlight, she refuses to be defined by her background. Instead, she faces each day with resilience and strength, inspiring countless others with her unbreakable spirit. Dugard's bravery is obvious not just in her public activities, but also in the quiet moments of her daily existence. It is in her ability to find joy amidst difficulty and cherish the newfound freedom she and her girls have worked so hard to reclaim.